Hey everybody, Daniel LeMay here with another episode of Doing It with AI. We've all heard of ChatGPT by now. It's been all over the news. I've made a couple videos on it. It's been all over LinkedIn and other socials. But let me ask you, how much do you know about Github Copilot? It works on the same technology, slightly different model, but it is a must-have tool, even for entry-level developers. So, if you haven't heard of it, sit back and prepare to have your mind blown because this is some pretty amazing stuff. Stay tuned. So like most of you, the more I dig into this technology, the more it just amazes me and just captivates me. And I started looking into other AI technologies because this channel is all about using whatever AI technologies are available to make life easier, more efficient, and just more productive. And so I stumbled across Copilot, which has actually been around longer than ChatGPT has, but I don't see nearly enough people talking about this amazing tool. So Copilot is a tool that you can get from github.com, and it is a augmentation to your favorite IDE. An IDE would be like VS Code, NeoVim, Visual Studio if you're a full-blown developer, and it gives you some additional features. So think about IntelliSense. IntelliSense will tell you if you are missing a character, like a comma or a bracket. It will tell you if you have modules missing or libraries missing. It will tell you if you're using a function that doesn't exist. And it'll show you, it'll kind of highlight all of the different areas within your code where you have issues. And it does have a suggestion tool as well to kind of say, hey, here's some possible ways you could fix this problem. Well, think about Copilot as that, only more, right? So what it does is it actually, based on what you're putting in, gives you suggestions on how to complete the code. So think about like when you're on Google and you're typing something in, you say, how do I, and then Google shows you a bunch of suggestions. Well, this does that, but for code. And that's a really, really powerful idea. Now, I'm not suggesting that you use this instead of ChatGPT. They each have their own use cases. But this is a video about using the right tool for the job, and that's why we're going to do a comparison between ChatGPT and Copilot. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to write me some PowerShell. And then I'm going to go over to VS Code and I'm going to have Copilot help me with the same PowerShell script. And we're going to see which one is quicker at that and more efficient. And then we're going to just talk about what the implications of what we find are. First thing I want to show you though really quickly is Copilot's website to give you a better idea of how to get the tool, how to install it, and what it'll work with. So let's take a quick look. Over at github.com/features/Copilot, you can see here it says it's your AI pair programmer. Copilot uses the OpenAI Codex to suggest code and entire functions in real time right from your editor. So that's kind of exactly what I was describing. They show you some very cool examples here. We have something in TypeScript, we have something in Python, and what looks like Ruby or something. And so it kind of tells you a little bit about it. Trained on billions of lines of code. It turns natural language prompts into coding suggestions across dozens of languages. Indeed, it does. I have been blown away by this tool and the things that it can do. So again, it's very similar, right? It can handle natural language inputs, and it does that by looking at your inline code comments. So you can write a code comment and then hit Shift-Enter and go to the next line, and it'll give you suggestions if it can for the things that you've typed. So you can literally describe some code, hit Shift-Enter, and go to the next line, and it'll give you some suggestions for that code. So if you want to get this, you can do a trial for 60 days with no charge. And after that, you can do $10 a month or $100 a year, which I think, frankly, is an amazing deal. You know, again, this is a video for people that are dealing with scripting or development. If you're just a regular business user, you may not get as much value out of this. But if you are a tech viewer and you're somebody who works in, infrastructure, maybe you're a sysadmin, you're dealing with PowerShell on a regular basis, or you're a full stack developer and you're dealing with all kinds of different languages, this is going to be an amazing tool for you. So, with that said, why don't we hop over here to ChatGPT and start asking it some questions. Write me a PowerShell script that connects to SharePoint online, grabs a list of site collections, and then for each site collection, creates a list of the document libraries within that site collection. Okay, so GPT doing its thing as usual. It's probably going to give me some really decent advice here. Okay, well, I say that. It's wanting to put my password as plain text. That's questionable. Okay, get a list of site collections. Iterate through each list of site collections. Get a list of document libraries. Print the name of the document library. Okay, so from there, what I'm going to do is say, instead of printing the name of the document library in the console, export the list to an XLSX file. Okay, so now it's going to modify the script and hopefully give us something that we can use to export this to XLSX. Okay, iterating through the site collections, adding the document library information to the array, and now we get to the export piece. Okay, so see, one thing that it did wrong there is it says that it wanted to export to an XLSX, but the path that it gave was in the root of the C drive and actually is a CSV. So it says you can open the file using Excel and save it as XLSX format. That's true. I guess you could do that. I mean, that's one way to do it. What's a way to save the document library's output as XLSX without having to open the file? Okay, so I may have violated their content policy. They probably think I'm trying to create some malware or something like that, which is not the case, of course. Okay, so this time it did what we wanted, and it's telling us that we have to have the import Excel module installed and have the necessary permissions to write to the root of the C drive. So yeah, that's kind of interesting, right? So let's talk about this for a second. So some of the things that it did well that I like about using ChatGPT for this purpose, it told us reasoning behind what it did, right? Not only did it code comment each of the sections of the PowerShell script, but it followed that up with an explanation saying, hey, listen, the way that I wrote this requires that you have additional modules, and if you're running PowerShell version less than 5.1, then you're going to have a slightly different module that you're going to have to use. That's helpful information, right? So that's one thing about ChatGPT that I really like. One thing that I don't necessarily like is the length of time that it took to actually do that. And I know that may seem kind of petty, considering that if I had wrote this script myself, it would have taken much, much longer. I also don't really like kind of how it did some of these things, converting to the password, plain text in the script. I'm not thrilled with that, but it's not the end of the world. It did what I asked it to do. So, all in all, pretty impressive, really impressive. I mean, let's be honest. So here's the thing. If you're a developer, you are going to spend a lot of time in ChatGPT asking it to iterate on scripts and give you different options on how to do things and such and so forth. And that can really add up in time. You have to sit there and wait for ChatGPT to do its dialogue thing where it's typing everything out. And so, in my opinion, Copilot is actually a little bit better equipped to handle this. So why don't we go over to Copilot and take a look at how it would do the same script. First, I'm going to try to get it to generate the script just by typing in the code comment and seeing what it comes up with. Maybe it'll write the whole script for me. That'd be pretty cool. If that doesn't work, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to look at the script that ChatGPT gave me as the source of information, and then I'm going to tab through in Copilot and show you just how rapidly you can actually spit out code with Copilot. And the assumption here is that if you're a developer and you're somebody who's really comfortable in PowerShell, you're going to be able to kind of crank through this because you're going to know what's coming. You're going to know what needs to come next in your script. But you can't type as fast as you can tab through things. And tab is the way that you complete a line or complete a suggestion that's coming from Copilot. So let's head over to VS Code and let's take another look at this. Okay, so now we're on VS Code. And one thing I want to mention right away is you are probably sitting at your desk going, but Daniel, you didn't check if the code works or not. You're right, I didn't. The code may not work that ChatGPT wrote for us. Pretty good chance there's an error in it. And I did that on purpose. I did that so that when we come over to VS Code, if we end up bringing some of that code that ChatGPT wrote for us over here, it'd be kind of neat if IntelliSense would tell us, hey, actually, this is where your error is. Or maybe Copilot would say, yeah, this doesn't really work. This is a wrong function or something. Here's a different one. Here's an expression that will actually work for you. So I'm going to open up a new file. I'm going to pick PowerShell as my language so that it knows what we're working with. And I'm just going to start with a comment. So in PowerShell, you can use the # for comments. So I'm going to put a comment in here, and then what I think I'll do is just paste in the same original query that I put into ChatGPT, and we'll see what it does with that. All right, so I put that in, and as you can see, it's just all one big line. I think I'll just go up to View and turn on Word Wrap so we can see it. So write me a PowerShell script that connects to SharePoint Online, grabs a list of site collections, and then for each site collection, creates a list of the document libraries within that site collection. Okay, I'm just going to hit Shift-Enter. Okay, so the first thing that it's suggesting for me is another comment. The script should then output the site collection URL, the document library name, and the number of items in that document library. Yeah, okay, I mean, that's not really what I'm hoping to do, but it's interesting that that's sort of the next logical step that it thinks I might want to take. And it's giving us some suggestions here that I really want to point out to you. So the Alt brackets, if you press Alt and then the close bracket, it'll go to the next suggestion that it has queued up for you. Or Alt and open bracket will go to the previous suggestion. If you like a suggestion that it's giving you, you can hit Tab, which accepts that and then writes it out. Or you can hit Control-Enter, which opens GitHub Copilot. So if you open up GitHub Copilot, you can see it says synthesizing 0 of 10 solutions. Now here's what's really interesting. If I open this up and I start to scroll down, I can see that it's coming up with solutions for me to look at. And I'm going to expand this out a little bit for you. So what it's done here is it has gone through and it's read my natural language and it said, hey, based on all of the experience that I have, for lack of a better word, based on all the knowledge that I've gathered in building this model out, here are the possible acceptable solutions that I'm going to give to you. And if we start to look through this, this is actually really, really close to what ChatGPT wrote for us as well. So in ChatGPT, it wanted to import a module for SharePoint for PowerShell, which this one does. It then connects to the SPO service, which this one does. It has a list of site collections. It has a variable for that, which it calls the get SPO site commandlet to populate. And then it creates an empty array, and that is another variable, an array variable. And then it loops through each site collection in the site collection list, and it starts doing some stuff with it, right? And then down here, it gives us some information scraped from either GitHub or from some other repositories online that they use to train the model. And what's really cool about this, I think, is that it gives you some context as to how the AI model actually works. It's able to process the natural language that I gave it and then go out there and find examples of things that are similar. It's even pulling in the comments from that repository. Like maybe it's in the README or something like that. Most likely it's just inline in the script in this case. But I just found that fascinating the first time I saw it. I can actually see, the creator of the script, I can see what they wrote and what their intention was. And again, right, it says 7 of 10 solutions. And so if you scroll down through here, you can see a whole bunch of other possible solutions. And a lot of these things here are just comments, which I guess the intention here is to be able to grab these and then do some additional work with them. But in any event, this is very interesting. Here's some more comments down here. If you want to include the site collection URL, someone named Chris put this together. So anyway, pretty fascinating stuff. And if I wanted to accept one of these, I can just go up here and hit accept solution, and boom, it's going to bring it in. So pretty powerful, right? I can then kind of cut this stuff out. Obviously, I don't need all of that in there. So I can cut this out. And then this could be a PowerShell script. I could go ahead and save this as a PS1 or whatever the case may be, and test it out, see if it works. Really, really powerful stuff. Now, that's pretty cool, but what if you don't have that information available, right? Like what if there are no solutions? It doesn't know what to suggest for you because no one has queried it in that way before. Well, I'm going to show you kind of what the natural kind of flow of things would be most likely if you were a developer and you were just kind of trying to hammer some stuff out. So over here on the right side of my screen, I'm looking at the code that ChatGPT wrote for us. And so what I'm going to do is just start typing things, and I'm going to show you how quickly it's going to suggest new lines to those things. So the first thing I'm going to type in is the username variable. So username equals, and then if I stop, it's going to give me a suggestion. So it's saying username equals, well, maybe it equals a username. Well, in our case, it's username at domain.com, right? And then I'm going to go to the next one. And look, before I can even finish typing, it knows that, okay, you've got a username, you're probably going to want a password, right? So I'll just hit tab, and that's going to autocomplete that line for me. Now, if I go back a little bit, anytime you can see just a piece of the suggestion left, remember, you can hold Alt, and you can start hitting the left and right bracket keys, and that's going to iterate through the different suggestions that it has for you. In this case, this is the only one that it has, but in a second, we will see something different. So in our case, we don't want to use just the password string, right? We want to use that convert to, and in this case, what's really interesting is that now we have VS Code kicking in. So you can see how these are really companions to each other, right? IntelliSense and the suggestion functionality in VS Code is a really great companion to what's happening with Copilot. So where this leaves off, Copilot kind of picks up. So I'm going to say convert to, and then, yeah, down there is secure string. So I'll do secure string. And then, again, now Copilot is kicking in, and it's saying, oh, well, maybe you want to do dash string password as plain text dash force. And that is what I want to do. But even more interesting is that I'm looking over here at the ChatGPT version of this script, and it doesn't have dash string in there. So that might be the very first place where ChatGPT kind of falls short in writing this script. It may have been missing that string parameter, string flag, and I'm probably getting these names wrong, right? Like the noun, the noun, because PowerShell is like noun, verb, right? So the string noun may have been missing, so that may not have worked. So I'm just going to hit tab and finish that line, and I'm going to go to the next line. And look, it's already suggesting that I'm going to need a credential variable. And it's right, because if I'm looking at the ChatGPT version of this, it doesn't say $credential, it says $cred, but everything that comes after that is pretty similar. But I'm going to try iterating through some things. So here I go. I'm pressing Alt and right and left brackets, and you can see that it's offering me different suggestions. So if I'm a developer and I know that there's a specific commandlet or a specific function or something I'm trying to use in whatever language I'm coding in, that first suggestion may not be what I want, but if I want to start, just alt bracketing through these things, I may be able to find the thing that I actually do want. And that's pretty cool. So in our case, we're going to go with this one, system.management.automation.ps credential. I'm going to tab that out. I'm going to hit enter. And then it's saying I need a session variable. This actually is pretty common. You'll see a lot of session variables in connecting to SharePoint Online or any of these Exchange Online or any of those APIs for Office 365. So, this is pretty cool. What other suggestions does it have? Okay, none. Now, if I'm looking back over at the ChatGPT version of this script, it doesn't do that. It stops at cred, and then it just goes down to site collection. So let's just do Shift Enter a couple times, and I'll do site collections. And I'm going to hit equals. And then, again, here it goes. It starts suggesting things again. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you kind of the rapid rate that you can tab through these things. And just imagine that you're a developer. You may not have to imagine. You may be a developer. Just imagine how fast your workflow becomes if you do it this way. So check this out. And I'm not going to speed this up. This will just be in real time. All right, so you kind of get the idea, right? It's pretty fast. I'm not going to embarrass myself by showing how bad I am at PowerShell, but you get the idea. It's going to be, if you know what you're doing or kind of know what you're doing, this is going to just really speed up the process of scripting for you. And what I want you to remember is that, the first example we showed, we commented and we put in some natural language text of what we wanted. You can do that at any point in here. So, it's probably the case that I know certainly in my work, I don't necessarily know every single function or, every single possible thing that could come next in my code or in my script. So if I don't know what's going to happen next, then I can simply put another code comment in and describe just the very next thing that I need to have happen. And it's going to go back out there to all of its information that it has stored in the model. And it's going to try to find the closest match and suggest it to you. I guess the point that I'm really trying to drive home to you is that if you're a developer or junior developer or senior developer, it doesn't really matter. This is going to speed up your development process. 100% guaranteed, it's going to speed it up. It's going to get you over those hurdles. It's going to get you to your goals faster. And it's going to probably teach you some things. I know that just kind of playing around with the tool, I've learned some things about PowerShell. I've learned some things about JavaScript and Python. Because, just seeing things in action is helpful. And if you were to have to go out to Stack Overflow or to GitHub and do Google searching or Bing searching and try to find all of these different scripts that do different things, it's going to take you forever, right? Even just as a tool that's going to go out and do that searching for you and make all of that available and quickly import that script if you find one that works, that matches what you're trying to do, you can import it super quickly as we just saw. That alone would make this tool awesome. But the fact of the matter is that it's doing that on a line-by-line basis or even an inline basis, right? Where you're in the same line, you're typing things out. It's going out and saying, okay, what references do I have for this specific function or expression that's being put in? And so it can do it on like a micro or a macro scale, right? You want the whole script? Great. It might be able to find you an example. You just want one little section? it can find you an example of that too, and it's predicting what you're going to do next. So when we started the video, we talked about right tool for the job. If you are writing scripts, if you are writing code, Copilot is going to be the right tool for that job. If you are a business user and you don't have a scripting background or a coding background, then you can start with ChatGPT, see what it suggests, and then do some iterating there if you want to. Take what ChatGPT gives you and then throw it into a tool like VS Code. And if you have, if you don't have Copilot, that's okay. You have IntelliSense. It might be able to help you solve some things that ChatGPT did wrong. But if you do have Copilot, then, you've got an amazing set of tools in your tool belt to get you to where you need to be without having all of that prerequisite knowledge that a true developer is going to have. So, with that said, thank you for joining me on another episode of Doing It with AI, and we will see you next time where we're going to talk about custom connectors and how we can use some of these tools that we looked at today to build custom connectors to the OpenAI services, how we can make Power Platform a little bit more integrated with some of these things like DaVinci and the different models that are available out there through the OpenAI APIs. So, looking forward to that video. Hope to see you there. Take care.